Good afternoon and welcome to AgriNovus Quadrant. It is just a delight to be with you, and thank you so much for spending time with us this afternoon as we dig into an area of the Indiana ag bioscience economy that I am particularly excited about, and that's animal health. Hi, my name is Mitch Frazier. I'm president and CEO of AgriNovus Indiana, and we are going to have some fun together this afternoon. For those of you that have maybe never been to a Quadrant event, welcome. This is our quarterly commitment to you to conduct and convene this industry. It's a chance for us just to meet each other, spend time together, and learn from one another. Typically, if we were in a where we could be together in the same room, that experience you just had digitally as you clicked from table to table, we'd be doing in person. So today, we're going to make sure that you have time at the end of today's presentations, all of the conversations we're going to have. We're going to make those tables back available to you so you can go and talk with folks and continue those conversations you started before. Now, essential to Quadrant is engagement. And so throughout today's event, you'll see over on the right side of your screen, there's a Q&A panel. Be sure to ask questions of our speakers and ask anything that may come to your mind. We're going to dig into really an important part of the Indiana ag bioscience economy and animal health. This is a $4 billion industry in Indiana alone. In 2018, Indiana companies generated over $4 billion in animal health revenue. And today we're going to learn from leaders across the animal health industry. We're going to hear from venture capital. We have a veteran grain expert who is a Purdue trustee. She's now at Lewis & Clark Ventures. We'll hear from Joanne Briette. We'll also hear from the winner of the 2020 Indiana Producer-Led Innovation Challenge, the tech genius and her team behind the winning team from Benton Group. We'll hear from Carrie Spawn, who leads IOTA, great young technology company. And we have a keynote for you today that is going to just absolutely give us unique perspective on what is the future of animal health. We'll hear from great leaders like Dr. Karen Plout, who is Dean of the College of Agriculture at Purdue University. She's an animal scientist herself. We'll hear from Sylvia Wolf, who is CEO of Aqua Bounty, great publicly held protein innovator. Can't wait to hear from her. And we'll hear from Aaron Schott, who leads business regulatory business innovation, as well as all things R&D at Elanco. It's going to be a great panel. And then again, we'll open it back up for conversations after we finish the discussions today. Again, don't forget that Q&A panel on the right side of your screen. And before we get started, I have to thank those who made today possible. Huge thank you to Inside Indiana Business and Gary Dick. They are the official media sponsors of AgriNovus Quadrant. If you haven't yet subscribed to the Ag plus Bio plus Science podcast, please do so. There every week, Gary Dick and his team post content about innovators across Indiana's ag bioscience economy. Is a wonderful way to keep in touch with what's happening here in Indiana across the ag bioscience community. It's the Ag plus Bio plus Science podcast from Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick. And a huge thank you to Gary and the entire Inside Indiana Business team for making Quadrant possible as their official Quadrant media sponsor. So with that, let's buckle up. Let's dig into this $50 billion global industry that's animal health. We're going to hear from a venture capitalist perspective of what is the animal health industry. She is a veteran grain industry expert. She's been a CEO. She's a Purdue trustee. She is an incredible leader. Today, she's a partner with Lewis & Clark Agri-Food. Please help me welcome Joanne Briette. Joanne, eager to hear your perspective on all things animal.
Well, gee, thanks, Mitch, very, very much for that really generous introduction. And I'm not sure I can live up to all that you've stated there. I'm a little bit of a novice. I've been with Lewis & Clark for about a year now after my entrepreneur opportunities within our own company. But the opportunity to be here today and share the virtual stage with this esteemed group of speakers that you've assembled. We at Lewis & Clark, as an investor fund, as we invest in companies, are big believers in a robust early stage startup ecosystem. And that's a real enabler for deal flow for us as a fund. And I just want to say thank you to the great work that you and AgriNovus and the IEDC and the Department of Agriculture and Purdue are all doing to really foster and grow that ecosystem, which is hugely important and provides some great opportunity, we believe. You've already shared little in my bio, so I don't want to share any more about me, but I would like to share a few words about Lewis and Clark, and kind of what we look at and are looking for and so forth, very briefly, and kind of the origins of where we started, which was broadly in the technology space with our first fund, with a piece of it being in the plant science-based area. Our fund is headquartered in St. Louis and has a number of former Monsanto folk on the team. Really, what I think is a really great team. Our managing partner and our general partner, managing director, Dave Tacklett, is a Hoosier native himself, and was his family was in the grain business, and he enjoyed a very successful career as an entrepreneur in the food and ag space. Lastly, after selling his candy company, one of the companies that he had bought out of bankruptcy, you might all recall, is a company by the name of Fannie Mae, but grew that company significantly with Alpine Convections and a number of companies, and sold it to 1-800-Flowers. Well, Dave was too young to retire, and too much energy, kind of like Mitch, way too much energy. I wish that it would rub off on me. And spent some time with a guy by the name of Tom Hillman, who found the first fund for Lewis and Clark Partners. It was more broad. It was a technology space fund, but again had that plant science component, about a $25 million component. So after spending some time with Tom, Dave became really excited about the food and ag space, about the opportunities within it, and made the decision to start a second fund, and that was focused entirely on the food and ag space, very broadly, but really kind of in the sectors of the plant science, animal health, supply chain, ag tech space as seen the greatest opportunity. So we've raised about $250 million in this second fund for late stage venture capital growth companies. We take minority positions in companies, typically writing $5 to $15 million checks, and like to partner with companies where we can add more than just a check. And the team has a lot of experience in operations of companies, and think we can do that through sitting on boards, providing metric driven input, and so forth. So we really work to engage with companies early on and kind of watch them grow. And I guess one requirement we typically have is that they have some revenue stream already to be a part of the equation. With that said, now we've invested in some companies with very large revenue streams, but we've also invested in companies that are small to date, but have a product market already developed. Perfect example of that would be one of the animal science companies that we've invested in. We've got 2 in our portfolio of 7 right now that are animal health based. One is a company by the name of Bin Century, and it's an animal feed sensor business that uses easily deployed, low Wi-Fi, solar powered technology that can map out bin inventories. You'll recall that many of you know that and maybe still do it. Using mallets to knock on bins and climb up to the top of the bins and get in to address to see what kind of inventory is in a bin. So we actually found Bin Century here in Indianapolis a number of years ago when they presented at the Forbes Food Ag Tech conference. So that's just an example. I tell you, we feel like the food and ag space is a really great space to invest in, particularly when we think about, the global population growth that we're going to see and needing to, feed 10 billion people by the year 2050, and that's going to require a significant growth, a 65% growth in food production. It's going to require 33% of all food production is being wasted. So how do we address those issues? 70% of fresh water is used for food production. So, we see that there's, big opportunities there, but there's a big supply gap from where we are today. So to feed the world, we believe we're going to need some significant technological advancement to do more with less. And we really truly believe that, tech-enabled sustainable food production is our future. Agri-food in general is about an $8 trillion market based upon, some tech crunch numbers that we've seen. Relative to other industries, internet, software, healthcare, financials, et cetera, we think that the agri-food space is woefully underinvested. And we think that there's great growth, given those numbers that I just, mentioned, and the need to grow our food supply. There's great growth opportunity for the future. So this is the attractive space for us that's our focus, complete focus. And I would also say it's, food ag space is a little more resilient than most, during boom or down times. Well, we're still going to need to eat. So that's another kind of gave us reason to think it's an attractive space for us. So that's a little bit about Lewis and Clark and why we think this is a really great space, and I'm grateful for all the great work that you guys are doing to make it attractive for the rest of us.
Well, Joanne, I can't thank you enough. And we have time for a couple questions. You've covered a lot of ground, which is so helpful. I think what a wonderful setup for the rest of our conversations today. We look in Indiana, we have about $4 billion generated in 2018 in revenue and animal health. We sort of start stepping back, right? So $4 billion in animal health, 52 billion total ag bioscience economy. We look at the global animal health market at 50 billion. And then I love your number of 8 trillion, this agri-food world being an $8 trillion global market. It's really broad, right? It's really broad, it's really wide. As you think about your portfolio, whether it's specific to animal health like Ben Century, or whether it's maybe the broader sort of agri-food network, how do you think about balancing the portfolio when you look at a time to return capital of a SaaS software type solution versus a therapeutic, pharmaceutical that has a 8 to 10 year dev cycle? How do you think about that? How do you think about investments in that space to balance the portfolio?
Yeah, a great question, Mitch. And I would say that, from a horizons and returns perspective, I'm not sure there's anything particularly different about the animal health space, versus other sectors, at least the way we look at it, is each deal stands on its own for us. But I would say that, the animal health sector in particular, again, goes back, is really underinvested in compared to other sectors in agriculture. And so we view this sector as really great promise, opportunity for successful deals, because there's fewer investments going into the animal health space. And, perhaps we might have a choice of selecting the better deals, avoid, competition from our competitors, and that we might see in more mature and more better funded, I should say, better funded sectors. So we think that there's major opportunity in the animal health sector.
Well, Joanne, there are a number of things we could talk about all afternoon. I'm eager to spend more time with you. And I know how to get a hold of you, but there are a lot of people here who this may be the first time they're meeting you. If somebody wants to learn more about Lewis and Clark, somebody wants to talk with you, what's a great way for them to get in touch with you?
Oh, thanks, Mitch. My email is joanne@lacpartners.com. My phone number, 765-426-1975. I'm on LinkedIn. Our website is lewisandclarkagrifood.com. Would welcome any opportunities to visit, and again, appreciate the opportunity to spend time here today. Really, thank you.
Oh, Joanne, thank you. And thanks for the perspective. What a wonderful start to our deep dive into animal health today as we look at how collectively we as AgriNovus and we as a community can grow the ag bioscience economy here in Indiana. Joanne Briette, incredible leader. Thank you for spending time with us today, and look forward to spending time with you again in the future. We've started out with venture. Now it's important that we dig into a young startup company, understanding what this evolution is. As Joanne mentioned, this is really an underinvested space. A lot of opportunity here, and coming at a really critical time as we emerge from the pandemic. More and more focus on food, more and more focus on sustainability creates a lot of opportunity for young companies. I am delighted today to be joined by CEO of IOTA, Carrie Spahn. Carrie and her team, you may remember them from last fall. Carrie led the team from Benton Group, a consortium of dairies in Benton County, Indiana. They worked with IOTA and Carrie's team to create a new software solution that improved feeding efficiency and also ultimately improved milk output. As the first winners of the Producer-Led Innovation Challenge, what was fun is to see what Carrie and her team have done post Producer-Led Innovation Challenge. We even saw them on the global stage at the Food Agritech Summit, or the Agritech Summit, not that long ago, just a couple months ago. So Carrie, wonderful to see you again, and really eager to hear your perspective on opportunities in animal health for young venture-backed companies. So Carrie, welcome.
Thanks, Mitch. So glad to be here and join this great panel of experts today, and glad to be here to introduce. Most everybody is probably not familiar with IOTA, so we're excited to be here. And I do have some slides to share, so I'll throw those up. But as I'm getting those ready here, I want to, I'm not going to do too much introduction of my background. Let me make sure I'm getting this presented correctly. And we're looking good? Does everybody see it okay? All right, I'll assume that's all right. So we're really here to introduce you to what IOTA is all about. And I've got my one of our founding employees as well, Elaine Thorndike, joining me today, who really was helping to drive the project with AgriNovus. And so I wanted her to speak to some of those slides and what we did together and what we're doing to continue our work. But I just want to thank you for having us again. And again, my name is Carrie Spahn. I'm co-founder and CEO of IOTA Solutions. We're a company built to connect data in new ways across the livestock industry. We're really here to fix the fractured ecosystem to help feed the world. As Joanne introduced as well, we are focused, as many of you know, there's a major moment of dramatic change happening within the industry. There's an increasing need and demand for animal protein across the entire globe. 10 billion is, to be exact, as Joanne also mentioned. We're, I'm sure, going to all speak about similar things. And the efforts to meet these demands in sustainable and traceable ways will require the seamless connection and exchange of multiple sources of data, as there's big data flowing everywhere. Improved connectivity and data-driven decisions can help livestock operations not only improve profits, but can also positively impact animal health and environmental outcomes. So while there are major technology advancements currently happening within the industry, the challenge still remains. There are massive amounts of siloed, restricted, and unused data across the entire supply chain. And the lack of data flow is inhibiting effective decision-making, collaboration, efficiency, and the ability to meet those demands of the consumers. So these dynamics have really come together to create a major tipping point. And that's where IOTA comes in. We aim to fix that fractured ecosystem. Our state-of-the-art software as a service platform solves the data connectivity and exchange challenges across the value chain. And our business intelligence tools drive timely, predictive, and prescriptive solutions with high-value outcomes as our focus. Outcomes like a few that you see here: increased operating efficiency and maximize profits, enhanced collaboration and effective information-driven decisions, optimized resources and improved support of sustainability, traceability, and compliance objectives. We believe that we are the missing piece to developing a prosperous ecosystem that will support the present and the future needs of our communities and our customers and our planet. And this is how we are doing it. We have two products, Ingest and Intel, that drive our neutral and our configurable platform. Really important key messages there: neutral and configurable. Together, they automate data flow and provide actionable solutions that are user-specific and driven by economics. Also key points to remember. Our solution is an end-to-end solution that has value propositions for all the stakeholders you see here at the top of the screen across the entire supply chain. We have started with producers in the dairy space, but we do have value propositions across the entire chain, as you see again. What we're doing is we're reducing that manual entry by automating the aggregation of data, one of the first steps. We also validate data quality to help drive solutions that you can trust. We automate alerts to facilitate appropriate actions for each user. And our business intelligence tools, again, make it easy to make smart, economic-driven decisions that drive efficiencies and profits. And I'll let Elaine speak to some of the other slides here.
So yes, thank you. We were very proud that we were chosen as the winner of the AgriNovus Producer-Led Innovation Challenge. And I think that was significant for us that it was producer-led because our strategy has been to work with industry experts and pilot farms to really understand what those challenges were. So a little background: we were already working with a farm in the region, Ambia Farms, which is part of the Benton Group. They have 4,200 cows. And one of the areas that we were addressing was feed. So we chose feed because that can be typically one of the highest costs, sometimes as high as 60% of the operational expenses on the farm. So this turned out to be perfect for the challenge. And our goal was to optimize the feeding process to increase the dry matter intake by 1%, and then increase the milk production by 1%. So the projected financial impact was $781,000 for the year. And that comes from the decreased costs as well as the increased revenue. And so we're on target to achieve that as we continue to work with the farm. So for this project, we were focused on feed and milk production, but our solution also offers a number of other value propositions, which we're continuing to weave in with the pilot farm. So for the next slide. So this shows you on the left side, the screen shows the different data sources that we were pulling together in order to integrate those to better understand the feed and milking patterns. And on the right side are the visuals that we use to make sure that the changes that we're implementing are having the right impact. And I think this is a good example of that fractured system where the operations manager wasn't able to see all the data to make those decisions. And now they're able to see that at the pen level. And the next slide. So we're continuing our collaboration with Purdue and in continuing to refine this process and to work with Purdue and with the farm at the same time to improve the predictive and prescriptive models that impact dry matter intake and therefore improve milk production. There's just a number of things. It's really a repeat, iterative type process where we're collecting, analyzing, and adjusting those as we go forward.
So I'll finish up here and just kind of highlight what our real goals are. We really want to help transform the industry, taking it from the manual, disconnected, reactive, and inefficient current state to an automated, connective, proactive, and next level productivity state. We believe we have a winning ration for success, starting with our vision to transform the animal protein industry by leveraging technology and data to produce more with less. We have a really supreme, innovative, and success-driven team, a solution built from the ground up with pilots and stakeholders and strategic partners, established strategic partnerships and collaborative and integration partnerships with industry leaders. Our model is a success-driven model. We've built a configurable platform that readily adjusts and expands for future needs. And we know we're working with an industry that's really ready for the solution. So thank you very much.
Carrie and Elaine, that was what a great update and what a great progress you and the team have made since we last saw each other last fall. Congrats again on the big win. We're so proud of the work that you're doing, so proud of the work you're doing here in Indiana with the Benton Group and with many, many others. Carrie, I want to take a question here to you first. And again, for those of you that have questions, be sure to ask your questions over in that Q&A panel on the far right side of your screen. If you have a question for Elaine or a question for Carrie, we'll make sure to get to it. Carrie, I want to start with a question for you. This is a big industry, the animal health industry here globally, a $50 billion industry. You've done a really unique job of highlighting the data challenge within the animal health industry. Help me understand how you're tackling the space, but more importantly, what are the big headwinds? What are the big headwinds to folks who are innovating on the digital side of animal health?
Yes, we are working hard to drive value propositions that are absolutely needed. And that's been our strategy from the get-go, is to work with pilot farms, strategic partners, experts in the industry that understand what the problems are now and what the current challenges are coming. And we believe that if we have those solutions that are easily adapted on farm and readily used and drive economic type profitability driven solutions, that we're going to be moving forward very quickly and have a high adoption rate that helps the industry as a whole move forward.
Super helpful. And Elaine, I know you spend a lot of time with the product team, a lot of time with developers, a lot of time with customers. I want you to get the crystal ball out, look at the horizon. What's around the corner for digital animal health, specifically for IOTA?
Well, I think that what's key is really the collaboration, that we're seeing today. It takes, everyone kind of working together if we're going to see the kind of sustainability impact that we're looking for. But just the amount of data that is available, but integrating that data in a way that allows us to really focus on what are the criteria, what are the challenges, what are the most important things that we need to be looking at, and how do we pull together the right data for solutions that will address the long-term challenges. So it's going to take a lot of people working together.
Well said, Elaine. One quick question from Kyle. Kyle, thank you for the question. Are retailers willing to pay more for the kinds of data that producers are willing to give down the chain? So are retailers willing to pay more? As you look at this data, maybe ask slightly differently, where are the monetization opportunities, and where does the spend come from to pay for IOTA type solutions?
Yeah, I think the key is that, again, going back to where our value props are focused, is that they're economic driven. So as many things that we can tie to economics, there's going to be a show of profitability, and that offering allows people to want to pay for that because we're creating efficiencies. We're showing value that allows a retailer to be able to come back and prove the value of their products to their customers and consumers. So again, that economic driven decision making is going to be well sought after and valuable for the entire chain.
Yeah, great perspective, Carrie. Elaine Thorndike, Carrie Spahn from IOTA Solutions. The work you've done with the Benton Group's exciting. We look forward to seeing you soon. And look, sneak peek, first time on stage here for Quadrant. producer-led innovation challenge coming back in 2021. More details to come, but if I'm a betting man, I would say look after fireworks are in the sky coming July 4th. You're going to hear a lot more about producer-led here in Indiana. So people will be chasing you soon to be the second winner of Producer-led Innovation Challenge. Great to see you both again. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mitch.
Bye, Mitch.
So we've heard now from venture capital on the opportunities for promising young companies to get funded. We've heard from great innovators like the team at IOTA. And now it's time to move into our keynote discussion today with three leaders from across the animal health ecosystem. Each are pioneers in their own right. Let's first start with Dr. Karen Plout. She's Dean of the College of Agriculture at Purdue University. Dr. Plout is an animal scientist herself. Karen, great to see you. Thanks for spending some time with us this afternoon.
Thank you.
We're also joined by Sylvia Wolf. Sylvia is CEO of Aqua Bounty, an incredible publicly held company doing amazing work in protein innovation, specifically around fish. And Sylvia, I can't wait for people to hear your story and what you're doing here in Indiana with protein production in fish farms. So welcome to QUADRANT.
Thank you, Mitch.
Yeah, good to see you. Really good to see you. And Aaron Schott, EVP of Elanco. He leads innovation, leads R&D, leads regulatory, leads AgriNovus Indiana as our chairman. Aaron, it is so good to see you. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Great to be here, Mitch, and welcome to everybody.
It is incredible, just the collection of talent we have on this panel. I am so excited for this discussion. Been looking forward to it since we first announced this. Sylvia, I want to start with you. I don't know that everyone knows Aqua Bounty. So if you could give us a little background around Aqua Bounty and what you're doing specifically here in Indiana.
Thanks, Mitch. You know, I'm privileged to lead a really great group of people in Albany, Indiana, where we have one of our salmon farms. So for a little bit of background, Aqua Bounty is bringing to market the first genetically engineered animal that's been approved for food use, and it's a salmon. So who would have thought we'd be farming salmon in Albany, Indiana, but we are. And as Dr. Plout and I have discussed previously, we believe that Indiana and the Midwest in general, aquaculture could be the next wave of agriculture for the U.S. And our purpose is really to feed the world by transforming aquaculture through the use of technology, creating a safe, secure, and sustainable future. And, you know, I have a lot of respect for entrepreneurs and startups because perseverance is the key. The genetic engineering actually took place 30 years ago, and we went through 25 years of regulatory approval. And I'm happy to announce that we are actually in our first commercial harvest this week, which is sold out, as have our next two. So we're actually going to be bringing our salmon to market. And what's so exciting is, you know, we import 97% of the salmon that we consume in the US, and we now have a domestic source of supply, a secure supply chain, and a high quality protein that we'll be bringing to market. So that's our story. And it is pretty exciting. And we are, you know, we're just really pleased to be part of AgriNovus. And as I said, part of this panel.
Sylvia, I love your story. And I mean, look, timing couldn't be better, right? When you think about what we all witnessed during the pandemic, the focus on food, and even as we step back and look at the global market and growth that we see ahead, the rise of protein specifically, demand for protein, as we heard from other panelists, will continue to increase. And you're in a really unique position to be able to improve supply chain resiliency, given proximity to markets, as well as the work that you're doing on sustainability. So eager to have more of a discussion on that today. Really, really interesting story. Aaron, I want to move over to you. You've had an incredible last 3 years. IPO, a wildly successful IPO in 2018. You've put together a number of acquisitions. Just last year, you had the largest acquisition maybe ever in animal health, making you the second largest animal health player on the planet. And you are at the tip of the spear when it comes to thinking about cutting edge innovation, being a pioneer in animal health innovation. How are you thinking about animal health innovation, and where can Indiana play in that space?
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. Yeah, it's been quite a ride here since we separated from Lilly. quite a journey. And really, Elanco's purpose-driven. Our focus is around food and companionship and what they do for humans, and animal health is the means to that end. And we care about our animals for the role that they play to help society achieve its goals. And with the Bayer acquisition and the other acquisitions, we've really broadened our platform to be able to do that. And now we operate under much greater scrutiny as a result. I think we're excited and compelled by the opportunity. The animal health industry, the segment of the industry that we operate in, is about a $35 billion industry, growing to $50 billion over the next 5 years or so. So if you think about where that growth is going to come from, it's going to come from new animal health products and approaches, changing the way veterinarians care for pets, the way livestock producers maintain the health and well-being of their animals. And so we're fixated on what we can do to bring solutions to the problems that are manifest in those environments, and very excited about the role we get to play at this scale with this range of capabilities across this geographic span that we now possess. We have as much access to the world's animals as any other company on the planet, and we have the most noble mission, I think, in addressing that, and that is helping these animals live full and healthy, productive lives. So, for an AgriNovus perspective, the lens sort of turns away from the companion animal side a little bit, maybe to fixate or focus on the livestock production. And really, what we exist to do is ensure that these animals fulfill their genetic potential, right? And we know that disease and infections and other kinds of environmental challenges get in the way of that. So we want to use science and technology to solve those problems, to let these animals become what they're supposed to be, and that's a reliable, sustainable, rich supply of protein. We know the world doesn't have enough protein today. It's got excess in some markets and it's got deficit in other markets. So we've got a supply chain challenge. We also know that the demands for food are going to continue to grow as the population grows, and we think as more protein-rich diets become the standard around the world, somebody's got to solve that problem. Now, clearly, there's technology bringing plant-based proteins and cell-based meats to the market, but we don't think that's going to solve the equation all by itself. Good old-fashioned barbecue is going to be a lot of that recipe, and we want to support that, whether it's the salmon or the chicken or the pigs or the cows that happen to produce the meat, milk, and eggs that we're all so fond of consuming. So, we see technology, biotechnology, and emerging technologies in the digital space being really a broad set of tools that we can leverage and use to bring solutions to address those needs.
Very helpful, Aaron. I love your perspective on the idea of innovative proteins, plant-based proteins. It's an and, not an or. Right. So it's not one at the expense of the other. They both can coexist, and there's room in the market for both pieces and parts of that system. So great perspective. Thank you. And on behalf of all of us here in Indiana, thanks for you, Jeff Simmons, the entire Elanco team, for choosing Indiana as your global headquarters. It's we're excited to see what you're going to build on the near west side of downtown Indianapolis. It's going to be a lot of fun. Dr. Plout, I want to move to you next. You are an acclaimed scientist in animal health in your own right, in addition to being the dean of the College of Agriculture at one of the finest land grant institutions in the country. You have also a really interesting perspective at Purdue around food and the intersection of animal health and food. It's a tough one because I'm gonna ask you to pick your three favorites, and that's always tough because you're gonna leave somebody out. So talk broadly. But if you could maybe highlight a handful of things that you and the team are working on that would be helpful for folks to understand innovation in animal health as it relates to Purdue University.
Thanks, Mitch. I really appreciate it. And it's exciting, all the different work we're doing at Purdue. And I will highlight a few at the risk of leaving some of them out, which is always dangerous, as we all know. And some of them have been already highlighted. And one of them is digital ag and data sciences. We know that some of those tools will be important to meet Aaron's goals, Sylvia's goals. IOTA has talked about it. And so has Joanne. So all of those, using data science to understand where animals are at in terms of their health and welfare, are going to be really important as we move forward. Using that to make sure they live up to their genomic potential, as Aaron talked about. All of those are really important for us for the future. We continue to invest in that area, invest in new tools, new sensors, and new data science tools to help move that forward. There's a long way to go in agriculture. in using those tools effectively, and in addition, making tools that producers can actually use. Another area is really important, that's animal health, but it hasn't been used, and I think it's important to use the word here, is animal welfare. We know that society, it's not only about just the health of the animal, it's how we manage those animals in their environment. And that's a really important pillar, and there's many different ways we're looking at that. Some of it includes things like the animal microbiome, so looking at the microbiological makeup to improve their health. Many of people will know about that in terms of humans, but the same thing is true of animals. Another area is actually using genomic tools to improve animal health and welfare, and looking at how we can develop resistance and some things like that. And the last area that I don't think we can forget, and it gets to your point, Mitch, about agri-food, and in the end of the channel is ultimately the consumer. And one of the things we continue to talk about is sustainability. That is on the minds of many, many consumers right now, and that's obviously people, planet, profit, and we've talked about a number of those angles. But I think we really need to start thinking about ways to look at carbon neutrality in our ecosystem. Really important, and something that's on the minds of many different people around the country. Using sensors, using data science tools, really important to do that as we move forward. That also relates to climate change. So climate changes, how do we adapt? And we have some tools for heat stress and lactating sows, for example, and looking at some of those tools as we move forward. So those are just a few examples of some of the things we're looking at in the animal health, animal science field.
Really helpful, Karen. And I love your connection between animal health and human health. I think here in Indiana, we're so blessed with industry juggernauts like Eli Lilly, with Roche, that have done tremendous amounts of innovation. The nation's largest medical school being located in Indianapolis. We have all of these assets around human health, and now we're starting to see these connections draw even closer together between human health and animal health. I think there's a lot of work to be done there. Really, really interested to spend some more time on that. If you have questions for our panelists, don't forget the Q&A panel over on the right side of your screen. Make sure you ask questions there. We'll get them to the panelists. Karen, Sylvia, and Aaron, now I'm going to open it up for questions. You can arm wrestle, flip a coin, draw numbers, whatever you want to do, but feel free to add to each other's responses here and make this as much of a discussion as we can. This is a really, really broad industry, from food to genetics to digital. There's a whole lot here and a whole lot of areas we could spend time on. As you think about moving forward, you think about continuing to focus, where do you see innovation accelerating? Where do you see there's the sort of near-term opportunity to go run, create traction, go make progress, and where is maybe some midterm and longer-term opportunity?
You know, I have the benefit of chairing the food and ag section for BIO, which is the Biotechnology Innovation Organization. And so I get an opportunity to see across the landscape of food and ag, but also pharma and biomedical. And I think that as Karen and Aaron have said, it's really finding the opportunity to link that ecosystem, because there are, whether it is utilization of animals directly into human health, as we've seen, you know, in the past, but more importantly, as we think about from Aqua Bounty's perspective, it's really being able to develop methodologies like the way that we farm with the fish that we farm that have been engineered for today's challenges. But for example, our pricing strategy is to make it affordable and accessible to a broad range of consumers. Because if you think about enabling more healthy protein consumption to underserved communities, that's really going to change the health landscape. And I think that that's something where we really, that's almost an immediate impact, is how do we provide healthier protein to those that may not have affordability and accessibility today?
Yeah, just building on that, Mitch, I think if you look at the dominant technologies that are used in livestock production, let's say the medical technology, the medicines that we use, it's really all about, molecules, honestly, that we discovered decades and decades ago. Realistically, they've served a great purpose. Antibiotics, even the vaccine strategies are 20, 30 years old. So, and we've seen, for example, with the pandemic, how quickly we can respond to a new pathogen and introduce a new solution. So I think the translation of that kind of rapid response to the next challenge using the latest thinking, latest technology. And one thing we have to do for our livestock producers is keep the cost of that technology low, because otherwise that just increases the cost of their product downstream into the food chain. So we're really sensitive about that, and that's where technology can help as well. I mean, we are learning how to domesticate biology in a way that allows us to serve the most fundamental needs of feeding the planet. And I think that's quite a compelling thing to do, and it's an exciting thing to do if you're a scientist or an engineer or a veterinarian. You know, the other thing we have to do is do that in the most sustainable way, right? We're coming up on, you know, August 1st or so, we'll have used up 1 year's worth of the planet's resources for food production, right? Before 1 year has elapsed. And so we've got to find a way to continue to produce at high levels, but reduce the investment base, the resource base that goes into that. And that's just being smarter and taking advantage of what science has to offer and the practices. I think Sylvia makes a great point. What she's doing is integrating the concept of the animal's health, what it's engineered to do within the production system, right, of making that product available. And that's very sophisticated thinking, engineering, planning, logistics, all of those things. So very exciting what we're able to do by just getting smarter, but we got a lot of reason to need to be smarter.
Just to add to that, that's where data science and digital ag become really important, because we can make some quick changes the quicker we have data. So when we have data, we can make informed decisions. I don't know what Sylvia's water looks like in terms of the salmon, but I'm sure if the water temperature gets off, I'm sure they already monitor it, but so it's a simple example. But if you can catch that quickly, you can very quickly make sure you're optimizing growth. Or we have new sensors right now for, we're developing for bovine respiratory disease, quick cow side tests for that type of disease. So you much more quickly develop that healthier animal. And the interesting thing about that technology is that's now also part of the rapid response potential for COVID-19. So it's got human and animal health benefits. So sensors like that will make a big difference. It also cuts down the cost when you can use that on both sides of those equations. So that's why those things are going to be really important for us as we move forward.
Yeah, I think the data-powered speed and agility that we saw during the pandemic, I think we all experienced that. A giant spotlight, right? Giant spotlight on the opportunity when the power of collective focus is real. And when the power of the collective focus happens, great things happen. I want to go to a question from our panel, Director Kettler from the State Department of Ag. Question, Sylvia, we'll start with you, and then I think Aaron and Karen, you may have thoughts here as well. So Bruce asks, as we've seen with Aqua Advantage salmon, biotech, and animal ag has been slow to be approved by reg agencies. Can gene editing in animals help speed up the process? And how far behind is the US now, maybe compared to other locations?
So we, at the time that we did what we did was 30 years ago, and we used genetic engineering. I think with the advances in gene editing, that again, you're going to see much more targeted research, much more targeted results expected. And I think that that is a tool that we're going to see in the future, but I don't think we're going to leave genetic engineering behind. I think it's got a different purpose, and I think that there's, you know, speed and agility to be afforded through gene editing. What I'd say about the U.S. is, and we all know we live in a very politicized time, is that we're going to need to really push our regulatory bodies as well as our congressional representatives to stay ahead in terms of biotechnology and innovation. Other countries are much more receptive and less inhibitory in terms of bringing those products to market. And I'll use Canada as an example. We don't have to label in Canada because Health Canada made the determination that our salmon is identical to Atlantic salmon with the exception of the one gene. So why would they label it? Well, here in the US, you know, there's this suspicion around GMOs and biotechnology. And if there's one positive outcome of the pandemic, I think that what consumers are hearing and patients are hearing is, you know, biotechnology can be brought to bear on pretty significant challenges quickly. And so I'm hoping that Congress and our regulatory bodies are going to be more progressive without relaxing safety, which they don't have to do, to bring these technologies to market quickly.
Yeah, I think to build on that, I think we have a contract with society that needs renewed as well. I think the GMO experience has taught us that we didn't, as an industry, let's say, handle scientific communication very well, right? This became a thing to fear, and we're naturally, I think, suspicious. But a lot of food marketing now is based on what's in your food or what's not in your food, and so I think we need to elevate the discussion around the whole subject of sustainable, safe food supply, how that happens, right? What livestock production does, how that happens, where technology can be a net benefit to everybody for multiple goals that we're trying to achieve. And until we elevate that conversation and participate it proactively with the entire food chain, I think we'll leave a lot of suspicion out there, and people think that we're profit driven and uncaring about the end consumer.
Just to add to that, I think we really have to watch this regulatory environment. Not watch, I think participate is probably the better word. Part of it is they're looking at the regulation, gene editing regulation differently in animals versus plants, with much stricter potential for animals than plants. That doesn't really make sense as a regulatory framework. Sylvia's comments on we need to keep the safety and environmental impacts, all of those types of things up front. But we need to have a fair playing field between plants and animals and helping people understand what gene editing can do and why it's an important technology for the future. And it doesn't, we still want to give wrong, just like we were talking about cell-based meats and some other things. People make choice.
That's right.
So we're not saying take away their choice. We're saying expand the choice to be able to provide the most different types of products in the market that meet people's needs. Can I answer Norman's question in the chat?
Yeah, please do, Karen.
He was saying how heritage breeds fit into the discussion about animal health. One of the things that we've found in various industries is going back and looking at some of the genomics of some of these heritage breeds. There's some great stuff we can learn, both in terms of taste and quality of product, as well as disease resistance. So we can use tools of data science, again, particularly genomics and phenotyping, to use some of the information from heritage breeds to improve our modern breeds, as well as keep the legacy of those heritage breeds continuing to grow by knowing what they're sensitive to and how best to feed and take care of them. So I just wanted to answer that because it's been sitting there a little while.
Aaron or Sylvia, any thoughts on that?
No, I think our interest in Elanco is to serve livestock producers, right? Not just one way of livestock production, right? And so to the extent that there are challenges that can be addressed with products that we sell or innovation opportunities based on unique needs, we're going to be sensitive to that and aware of that and gear toward that.
Terrific. I'm going to take one last question here and then we'll wrap up the panel. This one's from Philip. What are the largest barriers to accelerating the growth of animal health production and productivity in Indiana? Investment, people, markets, innovation, smorgasbord of opportunities there. Aaron, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, I think this is really at the core of the mission of AgriNovus is to spend its time thinking about this. What are the barriers to allowing our agriculture industry based in Indiana, or at least supported by Indiana, to flourish? And I think there's no question we've talked about the need for innovative solutions to the challenges that make this hard to do. If Indiana can specialize in that, I think we have the great potential to draw a lot of attention to our state about the great things going on here, the great environment to do business here, and as a result, we can attract additional economic activity. And I think that creates a bit of a flywheel then, because then we reinvest those resources back into that same thing that attracted people here, and it just keeps moving. So that's the flywheel. I didn't realize I was going to be making a pitch for AgriNovus, but that's the flywheel that AgriNovus is intending to create, and I think all the companies that participate in AgriNovus would like to see happen.
You know, I'll say, as a company that chose to do business in Indiana, I think that Indiana, from a state government perspective, as well as, you know, Dr. Plout and President Daniels, they're very forward thinking in terms of creating an environment that invites innovation, supports innovation, and supports business. And so, you know, from our perspective, because we had to fight battles in Washington, and, you know, we've had a history of all of that going on, we've found the fact that Indiana, at the federal, state, and academic levels, really understand the necessity of agriculture and innovation in the space. And so I think Indiana is poised for growth in this area. I think it can become a hub, if it isn't already, for exactly that. And I speak from experience, because I don't think we would be where we were if we weren't located in Indiana.
It's incredible. Thank you, Sylvia. Karen?
Oh, Mitch knows I'm always talking about Indiana being the ag tech capital of the world. That's
there. It
goal.
is.
And AgriNovus is here to facilitate that, along with all of our partners that are on this panel and around Indiana, to really make this the place to go for ag innovation. I don't think there's any reason we can't accomplish that. We just all have to work together to get there.
That's right.
Yeah, totally agree. Dr. Karen Plout, Sylvia Wolf, Aaron Schott, thank you so much. I want to make a quick plug for each of these three panelists. Three brilliant leaders. If you want to get in touch with either or any of the three panelists, shoot me an email, shoot AgriNovus an email. We'll make sure you get connected. This discussion must continue to go on. Animal health is a huge opportunity, particularly as we emerge from the pandemic and really focus on how do we improve food supply chain resiliency, and how does Indiana be the place that outmaneuvers, uses the agility and speed that we talked through to really make Indiana the hub that Sylvia talked about. Panelists, thank you so much for investing the time. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Great event.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Great seeing you.
Too.
And to all those that have joined, it is time to once again return to the networking portion of Quadrant, the big piece of what AgriNovus Quadrant is about every quarter. What an incredible discussion we've had today. We've heard from venture capital. We've heard from startups. We've heard from the second largest animal health player on the planet. We've heard from the innovator pioneering at the front edge of protein production in fish. And we heard from an acclaimed scientist, dean of one of the greatest land grant institutions in the country. Today has been a phenomenal discussion about animal health, but the discussion only matters if we take action. So my challenge to each and every person joining us today for Quadrant is to let's keep this conversation going, and let's go identify how we can work together to accelerate the ag bioscience economy, specifically around animal health. Today, that's as the latest data we have is about a $4 billion market here in Indiana. We have that growing at a sizable rate, almost $1 billion of growth by 2024 if AgriNovus can achieve our Grow 2024 goal, and that is adding $4 billion to the ag bioscience economy by the end of 2024. It's going to take all of us to do it, and I am confident that with your help, we can make that happen. Again, thank you to our media sponsor, Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick, to make today's Quadrant possible. And on behalf of the entire AgriNovus Indiana team, thank you for investing time. Let's get back to networking. I look forward to talking with you.